Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Before we begin the symposium, we have a couple of housekeeping notes. We have French interpretation available for those who wish to listen in French. Click the interpretation button at the bottom of your screen and select French or Française. Please be aware that we are broadcasting this event live on our Facebook page. We are also recording it and we'll share it on our YouTube channel and website. During the first session, we invite you to share your comments using the chat box. Please keep in mind, this is a public session. Please be courteous and remain on topic. Please only click on links shared by participants you trust. I would now like to invite Dr. Dominique van der Walle, distinguished member of the PEP Board of Directors, to take the floor.
There you go. Hello to everyone joining us from around the globe. Greetings and welcome to our very special guests, partners, and collaborators, including representatives of the International Development Research Center, Co-Impact, Global Affairs Canada, the Hewlett Foundation, and the MasterCard Foundation. Greetings also to fellow members of the PEP Board of Directors who are with us today. Thank you so much for joining us. As a representative of the PEP Board of Directors, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this symposium, organized as part of the 2022 PEP Annual Conference. For those of you less familiar with PEP, the Partnership for Economic Policy is a global organization dedicated to driving development in the Global South. We believe that every country needs and deserves to have local expertise to inform decisions about their future and their development. We support teams throughout the Global South as they produce high quality, policy engaged evidence to inform decisions at home. Now, each year we bring together these research teams for training, to share their work, and to learn from one another at our annual conference. And each year we also conclude our conference with a public event to exchange with a broader set of actors on issues related to development policy, debates, and research. Now, 2022 is a particularly special year as we celebrate the 20th anniversary of PEP, 20 years. To mark this occasion, the theme today is the specific role of PEP in increasing the participation of the Global South in these debates. We will begin shortly with an overview of what has been achieved over the past 2 decades, highlighting our success and sharing the lessons that have helped define our current approach. We will hear testimonials from a few alumni and honor the dedicated people who have played vital roles in building this unique organization. The second part of the event will look forward with a discussion on next steps in promoting Southern-driven development. And this will feature a group of distinguished panelists and be moderated by Fred Carden, the chair of the PEP Board of Directors. Now, I would now like to invite Jane Mariara, the Executive Director of PEP, to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dominique. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the PEP 2022 Symposium. Thank you for joining us on this special occasion as we celebrate 20 years of PEP. I won't say much now, as I will have the opportunity a little later to share with you what we consider to be the key lessons that we have learned from the 20 years of experience in supporting locally led policy research in developing countries. As is the case every year, today's event is the culmination of 3 weeks of activities for 23 project teams who are currently conducting PEP-supported studies across the Global South. Our conference activities aim to not only review their progress, but also to equip these teams for the next stage of their projects, either in terms of their research work or stakeholder engagement and dissemination activities. Once again, this year's conference was a real success, with active participation of beneficiaries in all workshops, sessions, and very productive discussion around ongoing research projects. In 2019, PEP adopted the co-production model, which means that all project teams, as well as our conference participants, include a mix of researchers and government officers, as well as other types of stakeholders. We have also integrated new tools and practices as part of our project deliverables to improve the information that our teams provide to local decision makers. Meanwhile, despite this strong focus on policy and practical use of evidence, the research continues to be of the highest scientific quality, as indicated by the share of PEP projects that result in high-ranking scientific journal publications. Well, our results suggest that we are on the right track to help increase Southern participation in international development debates. We are still far from equal representation, and so much remains to be done. We hope today's discussions will help guide our strategies and path over the next 20 years and beyond. Therefore, on behalf of PEP, I thank our fathers, led by IDRC, the Hewlett Foundation, Global Affairs Canada, Core Impact, MasterCard Foundation. We have other donors such as UNICEF, UNDP, among others, as well as our collaborators, our partners, our researchers, for their enduring support. We look forward to a very productive future together. I hope you will all enjoy the different features of today's events, and thank you once again for joining us. I would now like to invite another member of our distinguished board of directors, Carol Newman, to take the floor for the first presentation of the day, to review highlights of PEP's work and the impact this has had throughout the world over the past 20 years. Carol, you are welcome. Thank you.
Many thanks, Jane, for the introduction. I will share my screen. Okay, so I hope you're seeing that. So good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. And thank you for the introduction, Jane, and thank you also for the introduction to PEP for everybody joining us. So I'm really delighted to have this opportunity to talk about PEP and to talk about its global impact with you here today. So PEP's vision, let me just see if this is, yes, PEP's vision is a world in which every country has the local evidence and expertise to help make decisions about its own future. And the mission to that end is to promote Southern-driven development, where policy decisions are informed by high-quality, locally generated evidence. Now, since its creation in 2002, PEP has supported 377 locally led researchers in 65 different developing countries. And all of these projects aimed to generate a contextualized evidence base to inform country relevant development policy decisions. 1/3 of PEP supported research projects are in low income economies and fragile or conflict affected countries. And through these projects, PEP has trained over 1,200 local researchers, 48% of whom are women. And indeed, this ratio has actually increased in recent years, with women now representing around 56% of PEP grantees since 2019. Also in recent years, nearly all PEP-supported project teams have included government-affiliated members. In 2021, government officers represented as much as 44% of all PEP grant recipients and training beneficiaries. So with its headquarters in Kenya, and over 80% of its current affiliates based in developing countries, and that includes staff, managers, mentors, scientific and policy advisors, PEP has become a truly Southern-led global organization. Over the past 2 decades, PEP has developed a unique program to support the work of local researchers in developing countries, while at the same time strengthening and promoting their capacity and disseminating their findings worldwide. The PEP Research Support Program guarantees not only the scientific quality of the resulting evidence, but also its relevance for informing ongoing development policy debates and decisions in the host country. So PEP follows a comprehensive learning by doing approach, and so contributes to strengthening technical capacities while facilitating engagement and collaborative working between researchers and policy stakeholders at the national level. So this unique approach has proven successful. PEP monitors project teams supported by PEP very closely, and using these data, we know that over the past decade, the vast majority of the projects were featured or reported in national news media, thus contributing to informing general public debates and perceptions. And more importantly, over half of these projects have improved or supported evidence-informed policymaking in the target countries. So in 2021 alone, there were 34 reports of PEP projects or findings in national news media, and 13 projects across 11 countries had some influence on policymaking decisions or practices. So when we talk about influencing policymaking, what do we mean? Well, we mean the direct use or assimilation of the evidence produced through PEP research. So PEP findings being taken up to inform policy decisions or advisory processes. We also mean the assignment of PEP local researchers to special policy advisory groups or government task forces. So local PEP researchers being called upon to advise policy design and national strategies. And we also mean the influence of the PEP project model on institutional practices. So when institutions decide to adopt features of PEP projects to improve their own practices related to evidence-informed policymaking. So for example, to increase research policy collaboration or to better translate scientific advice for policy use. But the impact doesn't end there. Participating in a PEP project can also have a tremendous impact on the career of a local researcher. So beyond the knowledge gained and skills developed, when researchers engage with national and government stakeholders, they benefit from strategic exposure. So these key audiences are made aware of their expertise and are likely to seek and use it again. So PEP's monitoring and evaluation data over the past decade also shows that by the time their PEP project was concluded, at least half the project team members experienced significant career advancement. And in half of these cases, the promotion also contributed to increasing their influence or involvement in policy processes. Finally, in line with its objective to increase the voice of Southern experts in international debates around development and economic policy, PEP also provides researchers with technical guidance to adapt their research paper for submission to top international scientific journals, as well as funding to support their participation when invited to present their PEP research at high-level international academic conferences. So in fact, over a third of papers from PEP-supported projects are published in a highly regarded international scientific journal, and half of all PEP project teams are invited to present in international academic conferences. So this is quite remarkable and is certainly evidence that PEP has succeeded in this aspect of its mission as well, so improving the representation of Southern researchers in the field. So to find out more about the impact of specific PEP projects throughout the world, you can visit our website at the address shown on the screen. And we will now hear testimonials from current or former PEP grantees who are going to share a few words on their experience and views of the PEP support programme. So thank you very much for your attention, and I will now stop sharing. So thank you.
I am told there is no sound. Is that correct?
Yes, we cannot hear.
Just a moment. Jenny, what is the function to get the sound? It was working earlier. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Inquiry and scientific knowledge. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I'm honored to speak at this celebration of 20 years of PEP. For me, PEP has indeed been a shared and inclusive partnership of informed inquiry and scientific knowledge. The PEP program is very unique for someone like me who belongs to the academia, yet has been able to equally contribute to the policy sector. And this was only possible through the PEP program. It is a program that encourages plenty of learning of economic models and state-of-the-art economic tools and software via an organized team of professionals, policy experts, mentors, and support staff. It is by far one of the only programs that encourages the local researchers to engage in effective dialogue along the full duration of the project. And this is done with the home country's policymakers, community leaders, and all the relevant stakeholders. It is indeed a program that highlights the importance of assessing local needs and effectively coming up with policy solutions that touch the lives of many at the lowest of the grassroots levels. As governments and policymakers throughout the world were grappling hard to understand COVID-19, PEP had already embarked on guiding us on the possible immediate steps with respect to the fiscal and poverty implications of the pandemic. And as per the policymakers in Pakistan, PEP projects have been instrumental in providing rapid forecast of how to reduce how the reduced economic activities during lockdown were impacted directly and indirectly. Definitely, PEP has also influenced the way I conduct research. It has allowed me to introduce policy modeling in my career at different levels, and it has given me insights into path-breaking modeling techniques and opened doors to the global PEP community, which is all doing amazing research and multidimensional policy analysis. I am now able to conduct effective interdisciplinary research on cross-cutting themes that target multiple SDGs at the same time. We not only have become more scientifically aware about our work, but moreover, we are also beginning to see things under the gender lens. Indeed, this was an area unexplored from my research domain earlier. I have been very lucky to be engaged with PEP since 2008. And since then, I believe the development mechanisms, the monitoring, the evaluation and control mechanisms, along with the effective documentation of these efforts, all have played a vital role in this regard.
The PEP support program for locally led research is designed to engage teams from both the supply and demand side of an impact evaluation. And to me, there are two particular things that are very unique about that program. First, on the supply side, local researchers are not only getting a grant to conduct an impact evaluation, but they also enjoy a full package of training and a mentoring in impact evaluation. Here, really, mentors are not like traditional reviewers, but they contribute to challenge, to guide, and to support the research teams throughout the life cycle of an impact evaluation. That's the first thing. The second unique thing is that from the demand side, government officers also enjoy customized trainings on several topics, RCTs, how to use evidence to inform policy making, how to do policy engagement, and even communication. There is no doubt that the PEP support program for locally led research is contributing to the Southern driving development. My experience with has in my career and also the way I do my research today. I'm getting more and more confident on how to design and conduct complex experimental impact evaluation. I'm also more confident now to mentor junior and early career researchers.
PEP gives advantage to female researchers. This is an aspect that is mostly neglected by most research organizations. PEP is very strict on the gender balance. And I would say PEP ensures co-production between researchers and policy makers and all relevant stakeholders. This is actually very important because it makes the outcome of the research more robust and more impactful. I have participated in 3 PEP supported projects between 2017 and to date. I've taken some trainings on several courses. Particularly, I can say that I've gained much knowledge in gender issue analysis, and this has accorded me much recognition amongst my peers. I also like to say that PEP project has impacted my way of doing research. Like before this time, I would only do research, mostly do research for publication. But now, before carrying out a research project, I like to think of the end users. I like to think about how my research is going to influence policy decisions. And I think these are very important steps in the life of an early researcher. And I would like to state also that from my view and in my opinion that PEP is effectively contributing to Southern driven development. I personally had opportunity to meet with some of Southern researchers via PEP project. And my work has been influenced by the quality of some of this PEP-supported research done by researchers in developing countries. And I can confidently say that through these activities, PEP is contributing to capacity building in research and policy development in developing countries.
My experience with PEP has been transforming and life-changing. PEP gave my team and I the opportunity to ask relevant questions for the context of Peru and implement our research design in the field. PEP gave us the opportunity to lead a research project that tries to answer a critical question, a critical challenge for the Peruvian context, how to financially include the Peruvian poor. But my experience with PEP has not only been transforming from the professional point of view. As a result of my experience with PEP, I have also grown as a person and as a human being. PEP gave me the opportunity to work with a diverse group of researchers from all around the world. I have had the opportunity to work with 2 teams in Africa, in Guinea-Bissau and in Malawi, and to observe firsthand the capacity that these teams have to ask relevant questions and to implement research in the field and to lead research in the field, as well as the commitment that they have towards the development of their own communities. PEP gives these individuals the possibility to lead their own research projects. This is not only relevant from the point of view of making the academic debate more diverse. This is critical for economic development. Enhancing the capacities of local-based research teams by giving them the opportunity to lead their own research projects is also critical for economic development. And I congratulate PEP on the efforts that PEP performs for this. I just want to finish by saying that as a result of my experience with PEP, I have acquired important skills that allow me to implement better research in the field and to ask relevant questions. Thank you so much and have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you, PEP, former and current PEP researchers for those very wonderful testimonials. Picking from where they have left, I will go to the next session, which is just to share some of the lessons that we have picked along the way in PEP. And as I share my slides, I would say that I would start behind them and say that I've also grown through PEP. I was a PEP researcher than themselves, but indeed, the crowd has changed so much over the years. So we've just moved from one level of capacity building to another. So allow me to share my screen and then we can pick it up from there. Okay, thank you. So I want to continue from where we've heard from our former researchers, but also as Carol indicated during her presentation, and you remember she had this slide, the PEP support program has actually become very highly sophisticated, not only to support the work of Southern researchers with funding, tools and resources, but also to facilitate engagement and collaborative working between researchers and policy makers. And that's actually what we have heard from the speakers who have just given us their testimonial. But also, most importantly, we have moved to strengthening the capacities of grant recipients in producing evidence that meets both high standards of scientific quality and also the real practical needs of policy making at the country level. Yeah, I need to move my slide, sorry. Okay, so then what approach have we used over the time or over the period? Basically, the sophistication of the PEP model has not been developed overnight. We've ran a continuum over the last 20 years, and many lessons have been learned over the decade. You can see the type of the movement that we've had over the period, and these experiences have culminated in supporting locally led research across the Global South, as we have heard from the testimonials. And each of the lessons has been used to inform. Sorry, I think I have an issue clicking. Okay, each of the lessons has been used to inform the next programmatic decision to inform the quality or to improve the quality. Sorry. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so what I was saying is that this model has developed over time, as we can see here, moving from maybe the raw static base in 2002 to where we were at 2012, about 147 projects, 50 countries, and where we are now, 2022, and 374 projects, 65 countries. And basically the point I'm making is that the sophistication of our methodology has grown over time. It has been developed over time. And what we have done is to use the lessons that we have at each point to inform the next stage of development, moving from the continuum where we've moved from 2002 to 2022. And most of the innovations that we have brought on board are actually the ones that have been targeted at enhancing the scientific quality of the research, but also the policy relevance of the work, integrating, of course, the evidence generated through the PEP research. But also important is our aim to enhance the feasibility of PEP research findings or expertise at both the national and international levels, and also ensuring that we are increasing access to critical resources, especially the tools that researchers in the developing South do not have. And finally, we ensure that we do have the co-production, the policy papers, and so forth. Basically, what we are saying is that to improve the quality of our research, our policy engagement, our output, we've had to develop over the period. Now, I'm going to go over some of the lessons and related innovations that we have introduced over the period, and just picking on the ones that we consider as most important to our success. And also, we would encourage other stakeholders, especially the ones who are doing this kind of work that we do, to consider to complement their own approach to development research. So looking at the lessons, the first lesson that I want us to look at is the locally driven research, as was alluded to by Carol. And at the core of our mission is the will to increase the participation and influence of local voices in development policy. And the very conception of PEP then stems from the conviction that researchers and stakeholders living and working in developing countries should play an important role in defining economic development research agendas, and that methods should be selected as a function of the issue to be studied rather than the reverse. One of our researchers who give testimonials made very clear of the need for demand-driven rather than supply-driven research. And one of the things that we do at PEP is to ensure that we are insisting on locally-driven research, because it's the researchers and the policymakers who know the needs that are on the ground. And therefore, a critical feature of our work and our objective is to provide an opportunity for local researchers to determine the questions, the issues that should be object of their research based on their personal knowledge and understanding of the priorities on the ground. But of course, at the same time, we have different initiatives funded by donors that provide broad thematic orientations for the research projects to be supported as part of these initiatives. But either way, in all cases, we end up looking up to the local research teams to define, in consultation with relevant stakeholders, the specific research and policy questions to be analyzed. And then once they do that, we provide support to define the best methodological approach to be applied to conduct that analysis. Still on lessons, another key lesson that we have learned over the time is the importance of access to resources. What we know is that to make sure that voices of Southern experts are truly heard and their expertise given full credibility, then adjustments need to be made to level the playing field with the Northern counterparts in terms of research resources. Although I would say really it's attempting, it's not that we can really level the ground. And in addition to making up for the lack of funding sources and opportunities at the national level, as well as for the lack of international funding opportunities for the Southern experts, PEP has learned the importance of providing non-financial resources, such as access to scientific literature, data, and research tools in order to successfully promote Southern-driven development. And of course, Southern experts also lack the same access as their Northern counterparts to opportunities to capacity development, that is to run advanced economic techniques of analysis throughout their careers, whether this would be through formal graduate education, advanced training workshops, or seminar series. And significant investments in capacity development is therefore a key component in promoting Southern-driven development. And these are some of the gaps then that we try to address as PEP. Another key reason that we can talk about or just highlight is mentorship and network. Again, since 2002, what we have learned as PEP is that successful capacity development requires not only classic training workshops, but also intensive mentoring that is running by doing through the application of learned techniques to the analysis of real-world policy issues. There's no trade-off between capacity development and research quality in promoting Southern-driven development. They must go hand in hand. They are mutually reinforcing. Also, capacity must be developed in producing the highest quality, rigorous research. High quality research actually requires strong capacity development and intensive mentoring, and this is something we invest in very heavily. And then finally here I can note that since PEP's creation, a decentralized distant support model was adopted actually for the last 20 years to be able to reach out to researchers in a large number of southern countries, including, of course, conflict vulnerable states in an efficient and cost-effective manner, while drawing on resource persons from around the world. Of course, we know how difficult it has been, especially pre-COVID, for connection, internet connectivity in some of the remote countries, but this is something we have innovated over time and therefore did not catch us by surprise when we had to go into it full throttle when COVID actually came. But now with the COVID crisis, what we have done is to develop or to strengthen our virtual mode of mentorship, virtual meetings, mentorship, training workshops, which we actually plan to continue even after COVID, and to ensure that outreach to all teams. Okay, sorry, we want to emphasize this even in the future, taking into account three considerations. First, the fact that we need to increase our outreach. When we used to have physical meetings, we would hardly get enough of our researchers to the meetings because of the cost. But now, when we have virtual meetings, we are able to bring all members of the teams together. Then we would also be able to address the global climate crisis through virtual meetings because of carbon savings and of course the cost savings that would accompany virtual meetings. So basically what we are saying is that it's not that we are going to stop having physical meetings post-COVID, but we will try to strike a balance between physical and virtual meetings, especially for global climate change concerns. The next reason is stakeholder engagement. While PEP has always engaged researchers or encouraged researchers to engage and share findings with in-country stakeholders, even from the past, even when I myself was a researcher, we have innovated on this as PEP, and a more systematized approach was put in place in 2012 to ensure that research teams would engage from the earliest stage of their projects so that the stakeholders' views contribute to inform the objectives, and also to periodically consult the stakeholders all the way through to the end of the project. Our experience over the decade suggests that early engagement of stakeholders, of course, starting from identification of the policy issue, the policy problem to be analyzed, the design of the appropriate framework of analysis, some of the key and most critical features of our mechanism, and this contributes greatly to success of our work and to research uptake and policy influence. However, to be effective, engagement requires a systematic and a very strategic approach, both in the sense of selecting the most relevant stakeholders to engage with, but also often to determine the best way to reach out and communicate with the stakeholders. So it soon became clear for us as PEP that beyond the overall generic guidance and training provided by our communication staff, such strategies must be adapted to each specific context, and therefore guidance must be provided from a perspective that understands the country-specific and institutional contexts. What we did with this lesson was to actually realize that we needed the creation of what we call the Policy Outreach Mentorship Program. And since 2016, all PEP-supported project teams are paired with experienced policy advisors who are based in the same country or in the region to help in the design and implement effective policy engagement strategies. Okay, sorry. The next lesson is on knowledge transition. So we produce our research, we ensure that it's policy engaged, we ensure that it has, it's reaching out to the relevant stakeholders. The next stage is the knowledge transition. So linked to, and as a result of our experience with stakeholder engagement, as I've described in the previous slide, we've also drawn a series of important lessons on what is required for research findings to be considered as useful tools or as useful inputs for policy making. And a lot of that has to do with the way that knowledge is shared and the way that knowledge is communicated between researchers and policymakers. Of course, the mutual understanding is critical from the very onset of a project and at the design stage, so that the research objective and questions are aligned with actual policy problems and needs, and thus of direct use for decision makers. At the same time, cross interaction between researchers, policymakers also helps increase awareness, especially among stakeholders, of the possibilities and constraints of research, while generating a sense of ownership and anticipation of the findings. And in parallel, PEP now requires scientific mentors and policy mentors to work together for each project so as to meet and discuss the alignment of the research and policy objectives, and so as to provide consistent advice to research teams. Moreover, we also come to realize that the same alignment and contextualization efforts are required when communicating the results of research. The purpose of the research paper is not to produce a policy recommendation as we normally do. We would write scientific papers, and in the end we say we have a section on policy recommendations. Research actually generates information on a single piece of the information, a single piece of the puzzle, that is policy making. But for policymakers to understand the value and relevance of this information, it has to be presented in a way that shows how it fits their puzzle. And that is why PEP now requires that all project teams must produce in parallel to their research outputs a policy paper analysis, which aims to position the evidence in the relevant policy context and decision-making framework. And this has resulted in a significant improvement of our policy briefs as decision-making support tools. Okay, the final lesson that we have is on monitoring. Okay, not the final, it's just one of the, maybe where we would choose to stop today and share others online. So finally, it will not be possible for an institution like PEP with a very small staff of only maybe less than 15 permanent members of staff and working in sometimes more than 50 countries or 50 country teams simultaneously every year to implement such a complex approach on a daily basis without a highly sophisticated monitoring and evaluation system. So in addition to the close and tailored monitoring of individual projects by the assigned scientific and policy output mentors, all project teams are required to submit periodic reports of their progress, both in terms of research and non-research activities. That is, for instance, stakeholder engagement. And these reports are evaluated by relevant PEP experts, mentors, and staff, and must be approved by PEP before we can release the next installment of a research grant in any cycle. This helps to ensure that the projects are on track to achieve their objectives and also they are of high quality outputs. And this also enables us to act quickly in case a project gets sidetracked or lags behind the time schedule. But of course, to be efficient, the monitoring process and tools must also be standardized and automated. Otherwise, it will not be easy. So as to easily compare performance between projects. Over the years, we at PEP have designed a varied set of tools and practices to achieve efficiency in program management. And one of them is a web-based survey tool comprising several questionnaire forms that collect detailed information on the various dimensions and potential outcomes of a PEP project, from capacity building to policy influence. While the bulk of our M&D practice and tools remain constant across initiative to ensure comparability and efficiency in performance evaluation, the system is also designed to be adaptable to different project types and objectives. So depending on the project, we will adapt the seemingly static approach. And one of the most important contributions of this monitoring process is the production of concrete evidence. I can't stop this without saying this: concrete evidence of the impacts of the substantial investments of PEP and its funders in developing research capacity, conducting rigorous research, and providing insights into critical real-world policy issues. This evidence is a mix of quantitative and anecdotal and belies common belief that it is impossible and to measure and show demonstrable impact from policy, research, and capacity building. So as I finish, these are the main lessons that we have drawn from our experience in supporting locally led policy research, and which have contributed to defining and refining our approach over the past 20 years. To find out more about this approach and how it works, you can visit our website at this address. And now to conclude this first part of this symposium, we want to present a short video in which we emphasize the vital roles of former members whose contributions, dedication were critical in establishing the organization that PEP is today, and of course the development over time. This will be the first of a series of features that will be presented via PEP News over the next few months to honor these outstanding contributors. We hope you enjoy this first item. Of course, I should mention that it's not possible to recognize all of you. I know there are many of you watching now, and you may not see yourself mentioned, but know that we recognize the contribution of everyone. Thank you. Over to Marjorie.
To acknowledge the success story that is PEP is to also acknowledge the special contributions of a small group of people who may no longer play an active role in the organization, but whose vision, commitment, and unwavering dedication made it all possible. PEP began with this small group of world-renowned economists who shared a vision and decided to dedicate their valuable time, efforts, and expertise to achieve it. They were the original architects of PEP. Their intent and purposes remain at the heart of PEP's vision and mission today. The fact that PEP was initially created as a global network, connecting institutions and individual researchers worldwide without a formal institutional base, and that it remained so for over 10 years, testifies to their determination to work together joining efforts and forces around a common goal. Among them are those who established the PEP research groups, each focused on a specific methodology for economic policy research. As the first directors of these groups for several years, each provided scientific leadership while also participating actively as mentors to local research teams, and most continue to do so to this day. And of course, PEP's first executive director. After more than 10 years leading PEP, he continues to support us as the organization's scientific advisor, making him the longest serving member of PEP. PEP's first board of directors was created in 2013 when PEP was incorporated as an international nonprofit organization. Its first members thus played a vital role in establishing the structures and institutional capacity that set PEP on its current path. Other contributors have also left their mark over the years as they managed PEP research support activities worldwide, whether as directors of research groups or representatives of regional partner organizations. We also want to recognize the important contributions of those who are still active in PEP, including current leaders and directors of our research groups and long-serving staff members. Finally, PEP would not be here, nor be the organization it is today, without the continuous support, advice, and guidance of our first funder. IDRC was instrumental in founding PEP and has been with us ever since. To all of those who have dedicated their time, energy, resources, efforts, and wisdom to building PEP over the years, we want to say thank you. If PEP has been able to make a difference in the world over the years, it is entirely thanks to you.